Tonight, the reopening.
We have different rates of infection across the state.
States across the country are taking tentative steps.
The virus hasn't changed, and neither has the science.
This as the House takes up the largest rescue package yet. Plus, the president's prediction.
And I think we're going to have a vaccine by the end of the year.
The latest on coronavirus treatments and vaccines now in development. And
they did blood work and told me, David, your liver, your kidneys, and your bone marrow are shutting down. We don't know why.
One doctor's hope that the race to find a cure for his own rare disease may help in the fight against COVID-19. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Small steps and giant leaps as states begin to reopen. Welcome to Faith Nation, and thanks for joining us. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm John Jessup. Tonight, a record collapse in retail sales, even as states begin the process of opening back up for business. A new national report shows retail purchases tumbling almost 16.5% between March and April. According to the Commerce Department, retail sales over the past 12 months are down 21.6%. Restaurants, clothing companies, and electronics and furniture stores are the hardest hit.
To reverse the effects of the coronavirus and the country's poor economic health, President Trump has assembled what he calls a dream team that will produce a vaccine by the end of the year. CBN national security correspondent Eric Phillips joins us now. Eric, the nation's newly installed vaccine czar says the timeline is a credible objective.
Yeah, that's right. And Jenna, it's called Operation Warp Speed. And even though experts are working around the clock to produce this vaccine, the president says we are not at a race with other countries. He says he and other leaders have decided whoever comes up with a vaccine first will share it. But he has every intention on that being the U.S.
We're looking to get it by the end of the year if we can.
Friday, President Trump announced former pharmaceutical director Moncef Slaoui as the head of Operation Warp Speed, the president's effort to push out a vaccine by January 2021. Slaoui called the goal credible, based on data.
And these data made me feel even more confident that we will be able to deliver a few 100 million doses of vaccine by the end of 2020. And we will do the best we can to do that.
The president is combining the resources of the Departments of Health and Human Services and Defense. General Gustav Perna will head the military arm.
One of the great advantages that we have as a military is our ability to do logistical and sustainment operations afar. We're just going to apply those capabilities to this mission.
This all comes as states across the nation slowly reopen at the president's encouragement. In Florida, Universal Orlando's City Walk opening some shops and restaurants with restrictions. The Mall of America in Minnesota planning to reopen its doors June 1st. Just 5 regions in the northern part of New York State qualify for phase 1 of reopening. New York City remains under a stay-at-home order.
And then if you see a change in those numbers, react immediately. React immediately. If you allow this virus to get ahead of us, we will have a problem.
The president tweeting about Wisconsin's Supreme Court throwing out the governor's stay-at-home orders, saying the people want to get on with their lives. The place is bustling.
Just because Republicans said it can be a free-for-all, that doesn't mean we have to throw out good judgment, throw that good judgment out the window.
In Michigan, protests continue, urging the governor to ease restrictions. And in Virginia, phase 1 of the reopening begins Friday, except for in Richmond. The mayor there requested it be delayed until May 28th because of the need for more testing. The World Health Organization warning, even with a vaccine, COVID-19 may be here to stay.
This virus may become just another endemic virus in our communities, and this virus may never go away.
And while the race for the cure is on, there is another concern lurking in the wings, a mystery illness that seems to be attacking some children, and experts believe it may be linked to the coronavirus. Some of the symptoms are fever, swelling of hands and feet, and rash, and parents should definitely be vigilant because already 3 children in New York State have died because of this. John and Jenna.
Tough news there. Thank you, Eric. Well, $3 trillion, that is the hefty price tag for a new financial aid package that's brought House lawmakers back to Washington. It is the largest relief bill to date.
And they're also voting on letting members vote by proxy to avoid returning to D.C. during the pandemic. For more, we turn to Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson. Abigail, let's start with the aid bill. So far, we've seen these coronavirus response bills met with bipartisan support. Why is this one different, though?
Well, Jenna, what's different about this bill is it was drafted on party lines. House Democrats put this one together without consulting either House or Senate Republicans or the White House. And while House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy says that there are some things in this bill that he would support, there are a lot of provisions in bills that Democrats have been pushing long before the coronavirus pandemic ever began that have nothing to do with responding to the crisis. Take a look.
It takes away safeguards for small businesses when it comes to liability. It adds funding for Planned Parenthood. It adds funding for illegals instead of Americans. It talks about cannabis. It talks about releasing from prison some of the most dangerous people that we know. This is the most liberal wish list that has nothing to do with COVID-19.
And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has been criticized by many Republicans for bringing members of the House back to Washington to vote on a bill that does not have support from the White House and is pretty much dead on arrival in the Senate.
Now, Abigail, as you just mentioned, it probably won't pass as is in the Senate, but there does seem to be bipartisan agreement that another bill is needed. When might we see more relief from Congress?
Well, right now it's unclear, but Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has changed his tone a little bit by saying that he now does anticipate another relief bill will eventually be needed. He has not laid out a timeline for when that might be. He says that right now he doesn't think that they need to act urgently, and he wants to see where the almost $3 trillion in aid Congress has already allocated, how that's being used and what's working in that before they draft another piece of legislation. But this bill from the House will certainly pressure Republicans to start working with Democrats to put another aid package together.
All right, Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson, thank you.
Thanks, Abby. Well, here now to discuss, Julia Manchester, political reporter with The Hill. Now, Julia, that $3 trillion relief package we just mentioned won't pass in the Republican-controlled Senate. Is there anything both sides might be able to agree on as a way forward, maybe infrastructure?
Infrastructure, absolutely. I think throughout President Trump's presidency and in general, infrastructure is definitely something Republicans and Democrats seem to agree on. But looking at that bill, I think a lot of Republicans see what they saw as a problem in the first stimulus package. Quite a bit of what they call needless spending, not having to do with coronavirus. I believe House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy just said that in that clip earlier. So it's hard to see where it's going. And it seems that although there was some sort of unification, it seemed just a little bit at the beginning of this pandemic in the United States when we first all went on lockdown, we see that this virus has really become very politicized across the country. So I don't see this necessarily getting better on Capitol Hill anytime soon.
Now, Julia, you're out with an interesting piece today that it looks like a record number of women will be running for House seats this fall, and Republican women are especially coming out strong.
See that a record number of women in general, about 490 women so far, have filed to run for House seats in the 2019-2020 cycle. And we're seeing that Democratic women, I believe it's about 295 Democratic women have filed to run. But Republican women are seeing the biggest increase they've had since 2010, about 195 women by that data's count. But the NRCC, the House Republicans campaign arm, says there have been 223 Republican women who have filed to run for office. This is major because we've seen impressive gains by Democrats in electing women to the House and the Senate, but Republicans have continuously fallen behind. So this really shows that Republicans have very much strengthened their recruiting apparatus to bring on more women into the House and maybe even into the Senate. And they have also strengthened the resources and expanded the resources they are given to their women candidates.
Last night, Julia, Joe Biden held a virtual town hall with Georgia Democratic gubernatorial candidate from 2018, Stacey Abrams. Her hometown paper, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, described her appearance there as a primetime tryout for VP. What about the rest of the candidates? Does this signal that she's potentially Biden's frontrunner?
You know, it really depends. I think you're seeing, depending on who you talk to, where you are in the United States, you're hearing different messages about Biden's frontrunner. For example, I'm in Orlando, in Congresswoman Val Deming's district. She is seen as a potential vice presidential pick for Joe Biden. Kamala Harris, his former 2020 rival, another potential pick. And those three women, what they have in common is that they are women of color. And you are seeing quite a bit of progressive Democrats, as well as a lot of Democrats in general, calling on him to pick a woman of color in order to diversify the ticket. However, you still have Senator Elizabeth Warren, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer as potential picks as well. However, it seems that there is growing pressure on Biden to really diversify this ticket and choose someone like Stacey Abrams, Kamala Harris, or Val Demings.
Biden's also facing mounting pressure, Julia, on what he knew about the unmasking of former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. How much do you think this might affect the race?
Well, I think it depends what aspect of the race you're looking at. I don't think for Democrat or Democratic-leaning voters this really impacts their vote. However, this is something that will definitely rally Republican voters who, if they're very supportive of President Trump, are upset with maybe what they see as potential interference from the Obama administration into the Trump campaign in 2016, continuing this belief that there is this so-called deep state, as they call it, spying on the Trump campaign. However, I think you're going to see a lot of pushback on this backlash that Biden is getting. Yes, it was proven that Biden knew of this unmasking of Michael Flynn and that Michael Flynn was technically spied on by the Obama administration. However, supporters of Obama and Democrats would say that, they weren't directly spying on him. They were spying on his communications with foreign officials or other foreign entities, which is completely legal in the United States. So, I think you're going to see both sides really spinning this.
We will see. All right, Julia Manchester with The Hill, thank you. Happy Friday.
Thank you. Happy Friday to you too.
After the break, we take a look at potential treatments and vaccines in the fight against the coronavirus. Stay with us.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel. Now available at cbnradio.com.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
Prophecy thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he has, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
Welcome back. Well, here at CBN News, we've been following the progress of potential treatments for vaccines and COVID-19. In addition to remdesivir, about 200 drugs are currently under observation.
And one of those was first developed in 2007 to treat HIV. Lori Johnson introduces us to a coronavirus patient who says it saved her life.
Samantha Motet tested positive for COVID-19 in March. 2 weeks later, she appeared near death in an intensive care unit.
I had moments of, gosh, 55 years went by so fast. I'm not going to see my children again. I'm not going to see my parents, my future grandchildren.
As a liver transplant recipient, Samantha was considered high risk for complications.
I had an overwhelming support from my friends and family praying for me. They were all praying for a miracle that I would survive this.
Her doctor tried a number of experimental drugs without success.
She certainly had not improved. So she had been on the ventilator for several days already, and her condition was still critical and not improving at that point. So I thought that we didn't have much to lose.
Then he injected her with leronlimab, a drug originally developed to treat HIV.
About a day or 2 days later, the amount of oxygen she required on the ventilator started to go down. So the amount of oxygen being exchanged in her lungs started to improve. And then a couple more days later, she was actually able to get off the ventilator.
And then what happened to her?
Then she went home.
It was my last hope. And if it were not for that drug, I truly would not be here today.
Dr. Yang has also given leronlimab to several other patients.
Yes.
How'd they do?
It's been a mixture, and many of them have improved. Not everyone.
Leronlimab is a monoclonal antibody designed to calm the often deadly cytokine storm, an extreme immune system overreaction.
If we can stop the death, this is just a flu. It won't do anything. The whole country can be reopened and everybody's going to be safe if this works the way we think.
The FDA designated leronlimab as an emergency investigational new drug.
That requires the physician personally to contact the FDA, produce certain types of information, and get approval. So it's fairly time-consuming, and it's a barrier to giving it.
People are dying right now. They're asking us for drug, and when we send it to them a couple of occasions, they got the drug and they were dead already.
Cytidine, the drug's manufacturer, is requesting the FDA upgrade leronlimab to compassionate use status. Studies testing leronlimab on patients with mild and more severe cases like Samantha's are also underway.
Every morning since I've been home, the first thing I do when I open my eyes, I look up, I put my hands together, and I thank God for giving me another day. And I go to bed at night thanking Him.
Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Up next, the doctor who found a cure to his own rare disease and why he thinks that same methodology will be helpful for COVID-19.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5, Wednesday night at 9:30.
Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com to get your copy today.
Welcome back. When David Feigenbaum was a young med school student, he got the worst news. He learned that he was dying, but he vowed to fight the disease to the bitter end.
And along the way, he discovered his own cure.
What are we praying for? What are we hoping for? And then we need to ask ourselves, what can we do to turn that into reality?
The backstory: Feigenbaum was a star football player at Georgetown University. He then tackled medical school and in his third year was diagnosed with Castleman disease, a cross between cancer and an autoimmune disorder. There was no treatment for the rare disease, so Feigenbaum found one himself. After testing his own blood and lymph nodes for a year, he finally found a breakthrough by repurposing a drug already on the market. Now, as the coronavirus pandemic spreads across the globe, the 35-year-old doctor, husband, and father is assembling a team of volunteers to identify and repurpose a drug to treat COVID-19.
And joining us now is Dr. David Feigenbaum, Assistant Professor of Medicine at the University of Pennsylvania and co-founder and director of the Castleman Disease Collaborative Network. He is also the author of the book, Chasing My Cure, A Doctor's Race to Turn Hope into Action, detailing his experience. Dr. Feigenbaum, thank you so much for being with us. You were able to use crowdsourcing to find and fund a cure for your disease. Can you tell us about that methodology, and do you think it might work now fighting the coronavirus?
That's exactly right. Thank you so much for having me on today. Basically, we tried to get together the world's experts, physicians, researchers, patients to crowdsource the right ideas for what research needed to be done. And then once we did the research, we looked to try to find all of the drugs that already exist that could potentially be repurposed against Castleman disease, the disease that I'm battling. We're now trying to repeat the similar approach here against COVID-19. And importantly, as you mentioned, we've assembled a team that's going through the thousands of papers that have already been written about, as you mentioned earlier, over 100 drugs that have been tried against COVID-19. And we're really excited to see that some of these drugs seem to be working.
Yeah, you see, Dr. Feigenbaum, you have a theory that COVID-19 is producing a response much like Castleman's disease in that it produces a cytokine storm or a runaway immune system response. Tell us what you mean by that.
Sure. A cytokine storm occurs when your immune system becomes hyperactivated, and it's so activated that it actually causes damage to your vital organs, the production of these cytokines. We see a similar thing in Castleman disease. That's what gets patients like me so sick. I had my last rites read to me because of the cytokine storm that I experienced and went on to nearly die 4 more times. We're seeing, when we look in the blood of patients with COVID-19, we see a very, very similar makeup from their immune cells and also the cytokines that are being produced, which is leading us to actually try a number of Castleman disease treatments against COVID-19 patients. And some of the most promising drugs were initially developed for Castleman disease.
Do you think that cytokine storm is also responsible that we're seeing more fatalities among men?
It's a really good question. We're not sure what exactly the reason that there is this difference between men and women, but we do know that we talk often about the proportion of patients who die from the virus, but actually most patients that die from COVID-19 are not dying from the virus. They're actually dying from the response their immune system is having to the virus. It's actually this hyperactive response. And so if we can figure out ways to calm down the immune system, but don't calm it down too much because you don't want to have too weak of an immune system, but to appropriately calm it down, then we can be much more effective with therapy.
So your organization has researched thousands of papers and created a database from over 10,000 patients. So this next question might be a little bit unfair, but are there any specific drugs, Dr. Feigenbaum, you have already narrowed down as the most promising?
You're right. It is an unfair question because, unfortunately, there isn't enough data. But this is where we are. We're in a situation where there isn't enough data. So maybe it is a fair question. We need to be asking these sort of questions. And as of right now, we've seen almost 150 different drugs have been given to patients with COVID-19. And thankfully, there are a few of them. There are a few that have made the headlines that are certainly on the short list. But one drug in particular that I'm very optimistic about is a drug called tocilizumab and another drug called cetuximab. They both target a particular cytokine called interleukin-6, and they seem to be showing efficacy. But as we all know from our experience with COVID-19, many patients get better with COVID-19 without any treatment at all. So it's really important to do these randomized controlled trials. You can say people who got the drug had this response and people who didn't get the drug got this response. So hopefully over the next few weeks, we're going to start learning more and more about the responses these patients are having.
All right, Dr. David Feigenbaum, thank you so much. Very interesting. Have a great weekend.
And thanks so much for having me.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
From Washington, D.C., uncompromising stories, interviews, and analysis from veteran journalists David Brody.
Escalating fight.
Jenna Browder.
Chose his words carefully.
Ben Kennedy.
Plan to join him.
And Amber Strong.
For impeachment grows a little bit louder.
Bringing you the political news that matters.
We get out and tell the story of the progress that we're making in this country.
Watch Faith Nation, weeknights at 6 on the CBN News Channel.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
And finally tonight, the United States has revealed the official flag for the Space Force.
President Trump helped to unveil the banner for the Space Force this afternoon in the Oval Office.
The North Star signifies our core value, our guiding light, if you will, and the orbit around the globe signifies the space capabilities that fuel our American way of life and our American way of war.
The flag reveal comes with the United States just 2 weeks away from launching astronauts back into space from the United States soil.
That's a beautiful flag.
Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.